Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something really quite profound. You've brought us this collection of verses and reflections, extracts from the Guru Granth Sahib.
That's right, a specific selection. And the idea isn't just to, read through them.
No.
It's more about really diving in, getting into these specific passages you have here.
Okay.
Our mission today is to unpack the core ideas, pull out the key insights, really see what knowledge is here for you, the listener, in this material.
Right. So think of us as exploring your sources alongside you. We'll look at how these writings describe, well, the divine, the nature of reality.
Yeah, and then the human side of things, the challenge, the experience as described here.
Exactly. And finally, what paths or solutions these texts actually lay out. It feels like a deep well, definitely.
It really is. So let's jump right in. Where do these sources start? Usually it's with the foundation, right? The nature of the creator, the divine. What's the first impression you get from these verses?
Well, the very first thing that jumps out at me reading these is this emphasis on truth and permanence. It talks about the true Lord described as forever true.
Forever true. That's a really strong starting point, isn't it?
It feels foundational, like this is the bedrock reality, unchanging.
Absolutely. It sets the stage. This isn't just a truth. It's presented as the ultimate, unchanging truth. And linked to that is the description, eternal and formless one.
Formless one. Okay, so straight away, we're talking about something beyond, well, beyond physical shape, beyond what we can see or imagine in concrete terms.
Precisely. It transcends the material world, our usual frame of reference. It's outside of that.
And yet, paradoxically almost, this formless eternal reality is presented as the source of everything we experience.
Right, the ultimate creator, the one who, according to these texts, brought the whole universe into being.
It specifically mentions the incredible variety, doesn't it? Various colors, species of beings, and the variety of Maya, all this diversity.
All stemming from that one formless source. It's quite a concept.
It really is. Which makes the next point you highlighted even more interesting, the permanence.
Yes, the absolute permanence and, crucially, the independence of the creator. The source says the divine is and shall always be. That's clear enough.
Unchanging existence.
But then it adds that the divine shall not depart, even when this universe which he has created departs.
Wow, okay. So the creator isn't dependent on the creation at all. The universe could end, but the source remains.
Exactly. The creator's existence is primary, eternal. It's completely distinct from the universe, which is seen as, well, transient in comparison.
That puts the divine on a totally different level. And the language used, it's trying to capture something immense. You see phrases like unfathomable depth, ocean of excellence.
Beautiful descriptions, aren't they?
They really are. And also exalted, unfathomable, infinite, and invaluable. Feels like language is straining here, trying to point towards something huge.
I think that's the point. They convey limitlessness, ocean of excellence that suggests boundless virtue, endless perfection.
And unfathomable depth, like something our minds just can't fully grasp or measure.
Exactly. And this infinite nature is tied directly to authority. The texts state very clearly that this divine rules over all by hukum.
Hukum, divine command or will.
Divine will, command, order. It's the principle that governs everything that exists, according to these verses.
So not just the creator, but the active ruler. And also fully aware, described as the knower of all.
Nothing hidden. Aware of everything.
And it's not a passive awareness either. It's also the great giver, the one providing sustenance, keeping everything going.
Yes, it paints this picture of a divine reality. That's the origin, the sustainer, the ruler, the knower, all of it. The sovereign Lord of the universe, as one verse puts it.
It's comprehensive.
And if you try to wrap your head around all that, the sources consistently circle back to one idea. We can't fully describe or measure this greatness. It's beyond us.
That feels like a really central thread. How could you describe something infinite and unfathomable? The text even says it directly. His value cannot be estimated. He cannot be described.
It doubles down on that, asking rhetorically, how can we describe him with words? There is no end to the descriptions of him.
It's like trying to hold the entire ocean. Your hands are just too small.
Exactly. Any attempt is going to be incomplete. The reality is boundless.
But what's interesting is what the text says happens when people do try to speak of the Lord. It says they remain immersed and absorbed.
Ah, that's a key point. It suggests it's not just an intellectual exercise.
Right. It's more like Contemplating the divine actually leads to a kind of connection, a dissolving into that reality.
It points towards an experiential knowing, doesn't it? It's a state of absorption, not just thinking about. And the descriptions keep reinforcing this mix of being beyond reach, yet somehow present, inaccessible and infinite.
Exalted, unfathomable, infinite and invaluable. Again, those powerful words.
It's this paradox, utterly transcendent, yet the very reality that draws you in.
And that paradox deepens with the idea of presence. You mentioned the divine is transcendent. The formless one is himself in his own place, kind of separate.
In his own reality, yes, set apart.
But at the very same time, the text insists the divine is immanent. It dwells in each and every heart.
And pervading everywhere. In all colors and forms, you are pervading.
So both beyond and within.
That's a core insight here, yes. The ultimate reality isn't just out there. It's also in here, deep within us, and present throughout creation.
That changes things, doesn't it? How you might seek the divine. It's not just looking outwards, but also inwards and seeing it in the world.
Absolutely. It brings the infinite right into the immediate, the personal. And it all circles back to that immense creative power the text asks. How can I describe your creative power and the constant flow of bountiful blessings?
So a reality that creates, sustains, rules, knows, and blesses, all while being eternal, formless, infinite, and yet intimately present. That's quite a picture.
It is indeed. A picture of a boundless yet involved reality. So with that understanding of the divine laid out in these verses, how do they then talk about us? The human condition, the world we live in.
Okay, shifting focus now. Well, the picture changes quite dramatically. It feels much more marked by struggle, difficulty. The world is described as being in misery.
Misery, why?
It says it's engrossed in the love of duality. That phrase stands out.
Engrossed in the love of duality. That's significant. Duality meaning seeing things as separate from the one divine reality we were just discussing.
Yeah, it seems like focusing on the other, the temporary world, attachments, things that aren't that eternal true Lord. And a big part of this, it seems, is forgetfulness.
Forgetting the divine.
Yes. The texts mention people often do not remember the one Lord. They forget the Creator. This forgetting seems to be presented as a really core issue.
A fundamental problem in the human condition described here.
The sources even suggest we start out at a disadvantage. One verse says, I was born foolish and ignorant into this world.
So not arriving with innate spiritual wisdom, but rather lacking it.
Exactly. Starting from a place of needing to learn, needing to remember.
And this lack of awareness, this forgetfulness, combined with getting attached to the world. Where does that lead, according to these verses?
It leads to getting stuck. There's this incredibly vivid image used, the swamp of emotional attachment.
A swamp?
Yeah, where your feet can't move. And it says people are seen drowning there. Drowning in relationships, possessions, worldly things, unable to get free.
That's a powerful metaphor. Stuck and overwhelmed. Does it identify what causes this state? What keeps people in the swamp?
It does. It points to specific inner forces. And right near the top is egotism. Hamai.
Ah, ego. How is it described?
As very enticing, deceptively attractive. And it says egotistical pride has plundered everyone. Like it steals something precious from us.
Plundered everyone. So it's seen as a universal problem, a binding force. Does it say how it binds?
It says it binds people and makes them wander aimlessly, it seems. It's definitely something the texts say must be renounced. You have to actively let it go.
But is it conquerable? Or are we just stuck with it?
No, there's hope. It says the pain of egotism can be taken away. And specifically, it mentions the Shabad, the Guru's word, as the way to eradicate it.
Okay, so a major obstacle, but with a potential remedy identified. What else contributes to being stuck in this swamp?
Well, related to ego is that duality again, dujabe, focusing on the many instead of the one.
The love of duality that causes misery.
Right. And the texts also say it leads to suffering, even ruin. It creates this sense of separation, which is inherently painful. It apparently makes the mind and body feel insipid, sort of flat, lifeless.
Lacking vitality, perhaps. And it causes pain, punishment, and sorrow, specifically because of this perception of differences, of separation.
Then there's Maya. That's a big concept. How do these sources talk about Maya?
Maya is often understood as illusion, the deceptive nature of the material world. Here, it's described as enticing desire.
Desire for what?
Things like false wealth and property. It's seen as a source of torment in many ways. Things like intellectual pride, getting caught up in your own cleverness, but also attachments to children, spouse, and possessions. The text is pretty blunt. The world is deceived and plundered by riches, youth, greed, and egotism.
So Maya fuels these desires and attachments that keep people trapped.
Exactly. It creates bonds, makes people run around chasing things, lost in illusion. But, like ego, the sources suggest the illusion of Maya can be dispelled, again, through the Shabbat.
Okay, so ego, duality, Maya. It sounds like a whole network of things working against clarity. Does it mention specific vices too?
It does. It speaks quite powerfully about sexual desire and unresolved anger, dwelling within us like outcasts.
Like they don't belong but are still there, causing trouble.
Yes, and the mind is described as being engrossed in sexual desire, anger, greed, and attachment. It also observes people practicing greed, avarice, and great falsehood. These are presented as common aspects of this difficult human condition.
So you have this forgetting of the divine, being trapped by ego, duality, Maya, vices. What's the overall result? What's the consequence of living this way according to these texts?
The sources are very direct about the outcome. They say people caught in this cycle die and continue coming and going in reincarnation.
Reincarnation. So not just one life of suffering, but potentially many.
That's the picture painted here. They wander lost and are reincarnated over and over. It's presented as a continuous cycle of birth, suffering, death, and rebirth, fueled by these unresolved inner states and attachments.
Then even the body itself, how is that viewed?
There's a sense of its impermanence. The text describes the empty body as dreadful when the soul goes out from within.
Dreadful.
Yes, suggesting that without that spiritual essence, it's just matter, blind clay, lacking real awareness or value in itself.
And spiritually, what's the state of someone caught in this cycle, not remembering the divine?
They are described as impure. Their inner state is compromised. They are tormented even by things like intellectual pride if it's not grounded spiritually.
So even intelligence can be a trap.
Apparently so. They are ruined through the love of duality. And ultimately, their lives, no matter how busy or seemingly successful, are considered useless without meditating on the name.
Useless. That's strong. So, a state of suffering, spiritual blindness, impurity, and being stuck in this relentless cycle, it's quite a challenging diagnosis of the human condition.
It is. But having laid out the problem, the sources then dedicate significant attention to the solution, the path out.
Okay, so if that's the diagnosis, what's the prescription? How do these texts say one can get out of that swamp, break the cycle?
The guidance consistently points towards one central practice, one core principle, the divine name.
Name, its importance seems absolute based on the verses. One says, without your name, there is no place at all.
No place at all. That's about as fundamental as it gets, isn't it? It's not presented as just one helpful technique among others.
No, it feels foundational. Like without it, you're lost.
And it's not just about knowing the name exists. It requires active engagement. The constant refrain is meditating on the name.
Right, the instruction. Meditate on that name of the Lord, O my mind.
And not just now and then. The advice is continuous. Chant the name of the Lord day and night. It's meant to be a constant companion, a constant focus.
And the results promised for doing this, they seem to cover basically all the problems we just talked about.
They really do. The name is described in glowing terms. Excellent and sublime, an inexhaustible treasure, an ocean of peace.
For those who practice it, it's their true wealth. It's even called ambrosial nectar, like spiritual food.
Exactly, bringing spiritual life and sustenance. And a panacea, a universal medicine for all spiritual ills.
So how does meditating on the name actually help, according to these texts? What does it do?
It's linked to very tangible outcomes. It resolves affairs, sorts out problems, it brings peace and satisfaction internally.
And purification.
Yes, it purifies the body.
Yeah.
And crucially, it eliminates egotism. Remember how central ego was to the problem?
Right, the thing that plundered everyone.
The name is presented as the direct antidote. It also destroys disease, eliminates pain, suffering, and fear.
Wow. Peace, satisfaction, purity, no ego, no fear. That sounds like a transformed state.
And the ultimate outcome, it breaks the bondage of birth and death. It offers the way out of that cycle of reincarnation.
So it's the key to liberation itself. The text mentions earning the profit of the Lord's name in this world leads to peace hereafter.
That's the connection. What you cultivate here through the name determines your state beyond this life, and the sources are emphatic. Only those who meditate on the name are saved.
They're the ones whose affairs are resolved, who become absorbed in the name. It seems to make the mind blissful, tuned in.
So the name is absolutely central. But how does one get this name? How do you learn to meditate, access the wisdom needed? This is where another figure becomes vital, the guru.
The guru, yes. The texts seem to present the guru as indispensable. It says, meeting with the guru, your affairs shall be resolved.
That connection is key. The guru is the facilitator, the one who connects you to the path and helps resolve those life struggles.
The language about the guru's necessity is really strong. Without the guru, there is no spiritual wisdom.
No spiritual wisdom. So, according to these texts, real liberating insight doesn't just come from reading books or thinking hard on your own.
It requires guidance.
It requires the guru's guidance. Meeting the true guru is what leads to finding the jewel of meditative reflection. And it's by surrendering the mind to the guru that one finds universal love.
The guru is also described as the source of liberation itself and forgiveness, erases demerits.
Yes, finding the wealth of liberation is linked to meeting the guru. It's specifically meeting the true guru that leads to emancipation, to meeting the Lord.
So the guru isn't just teaching ideas, but actively helping.
Very actively. The guru dispels doubts, clears confusion, and remember the swamp metaphor. The guru lifts up those who are drowning.
Pulls you out of the swamp of attachment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And provides the vision, shows the lofty and unfathomable place of the divine, which is otherwise inaccessible.
And practically speaking, the guru gives the tool.
Gives the key. The true guru has given me the mantra of the Lord's name. This specific mantra, received from the guru, becomes the support for resolving one's issues.
And the guru's teachings, Brahmati, they help you cultivate the divine within.
Yes, they lead to that inner cultivation and impart true understanding. And central to those teachings is the guru's word, the Shabad.
The Shabad. That came up earlier as something that dispels Maya and ego. How else is it described?
With immense value, it's called ambrosial nectar, same as the name. It's the direct means to overcome inner obstacles. Let the words of the guru abide within your mind. Let egotism and desires die.
So listening to and internalizing the Shabad is crucial.
It reveals the Lord, it pierces the self, cuts through the ego, and enables a deeper form of communication, the unspoken speech. It's a treasure within.
Okay, so the path involves the name, guided by the guru through the Shabad. Is there anything else? Does it mention community?
Yes, absolutely. The importance of community, the company of the holy, or Sad Sangat, is also stressed.
The Sad Sangat, how is that described?
As the Society of the Saints, it's where the guru is found, and it's called the Treasure of Liberation, a supportive environment for the journey.
What happens in the Sad Sangat?
People gather and chant the Bani, the guru's word. It's a place to actively meditate on the Lord God together.
And you can receive the name there.
It's suggested that the Sad Sangat is where the name is received, learned, practiced, reinforced. It's seen as a boat helping you cross over the ocean of Maya.
Getting help to navigate the illusions.
Exactly. And the text says, misfortune disappears upon joining. It fosters practice, but also understanding of the divine mystery. It's a vital support system.
So you have the name, the guru, the Shabad, the Sangat, all crucial external supports and internal practices. Does it also talk about personal effort, inner virtues, actions?
Yes, definitely. It's not just passive reception. There's an active component, cultivating certain qualities and ways of living.
How is that explained?
There's a beautiful metaphor used, an agricultural one. Make this body the field.
Okay, the body is the field.
Plant the seed of good actions. So ethical conduct is the seed.
And the water?
Water it with a name, devotional practice. Let your mind be the farmer. Your intention and focus direct the process. The Lord shall sprout in your heart.
That connects everything. Body, actions, devotion, mind, leading to spiritual growth within.
It requires real inner work, meditating with single-minded love, not half-heartedly.
A hocus devotion.
And it requires actively letting go, renouncing useless schemes, things that don't lead anywhere spiritually, and specifically renouncing egotistical pride and that sense of my and yours.
That possessiveness. Identifying with temporary things, pulling the weeds, basically.
Exactly. And instead of focusing energy on the self or possessions, the path involves serving the Lord, redirecting your life's purpose towards service.
You also mentioned a virtue that might sound a bit strange. Fear of God. What does that mean here? It doesn't sound like being scared.
No, it's generally understood not as terror, but as profound reverence, awe, respect for the divine's majesty and power. And the texts say living in this reverence actually makes you fearless in the worldly sense.
Interesting. So divine reverence overcomes worldly fear. and leads to purity.
Leads to purity, yes. It transforms your inner state.
Yeah.
And tied to overcoming ego is eliminating selfishness and conceit, constantly working on that self-centeredness.
And living ethically seems woven throughout. The Gurmukh, the one following the Guru, practices good deeds.
It's not just an internal journey, it has to manifest outwardly, striving to see the truth and speak the truth, living authentically.
And developing equanimity, treating pain and pleasure, honor and dishonor as the same.
Yes, that detachment from the ups and downs of the world is seen as a sign of spiritual maturity, not being tossed around by circumstances.
And finally, humility. Be humble in this world.
It connects right back to overcoming ego, recognizing your place before the infinite. So it's this blend: external guidance from the Guru and Sangha, internal practice of Naam and Shabad, and cultivating virtues like humility, service, reverence, and ethical action.
That provides a really comprehensive roadmap based on these sources, but there's one more element you highlighted that seems to weave through all of this. Divine grace, Kirpa.
Ah, yes, grace. This is crucial because the texts suggest that while there's a path, actions to take, virtues to cultivate, the ability to even walk that path and the ultimate success isn't entirely up to us. It depends on the divine's mercy.
So grace isn't something you necessarily earn through perfect practice. It's bestowed.
That's how it's portrayed here. By his grace, he protects our soul. It comes from the divine's own nature, his initiative.
And it's specifically through mercy or grace that one is united with the Guru.
Exactly. So even finding the guide, the source of the Naam and Shabad, is presented as an act of grace. The journey often begins with divine outreach, not just human seeking.
And forgiveness is part of this. Receiving mercy and forgiveness from the Supreme Lord God, the Forgiver.
Yes. Despite all the human flaws described, the forgetting, the ego, the vices, the divine is shown as willing and able to forgive through grace.
Understanding the divine will, hukam, is also mentioned as coming by Guru's grace, not just by study.
Right. It's a deeper spiritual understanding, granted through grace, often facilitated by the Guru's presence or teaching.
The sources say the divine shows the way to some by grace. Does that imply not everyone gets shown the way, or maybe not in the same way?
It suggests that the opportunity, the capacity, the inclination to follow the path isn't just a matter of human will or effort alone. There's an element of divine selection or favor involved.
And who is likely to receive this grace? Is there anything that makes one more receptive?
Humility seems key. The divine is described as merciful to the meek. That humility we talked about cultivating seems to open the door for grace.
This raises interesting questions about, well, free will versus divine control. Some verses indicate the divine himself is the doer and cause.
Yes, and even that the divine direct attachment. This introduces a perspective where the divine sovereignty is paramount, influencing events and even our inner states.
It brings in the idea of destiny, doesn't it? Meeting a holy saint happens by perfect destiny. Having good destiny written on their forehead leads to remembering the Lord.
It does link the capacity for remembrance and seeking the path to some kind of prior divine arrangement or preordination, according to these specific verses.
So it's a complex interplay. There's a path requiring effort, virtue, practice. But the ability to start, stay on it, and ultimately succeed seems deeply intertwined with grace and this idea of destiny.
Precisely. It's those upon whom the Lord casts his glance of grace who finally cross the world ocean, who achieve liberation. It underscores that salvation is ultimately a gift, even if walking the path prepares you to receive it. Even the Guru's word is said to awaken good karma grace, empowering positive action.
It adds a layer of profound humility then. It's not just about what I achieve.
Exactly. It's about aligning yourself with the path, doing the work, but recognizing the ultimate reliance on the divine's initiative and favor. Now, to really grasp the weight of this path and the importance of grace, the sources paints a very stark picture of the alternative. What happens if you ignore all this?
Right, the consequences. If someone stays in that state of forgetfulness, ego, duality, doesn't seek the name or the Guru, what do these texts say happens?
The outcomes are presented as, well, pretty grim. Undesirable, certainly. For those who don't remember the Lord, any good qualities they might have, their virtues, shall wither away.
So it's not just stagnation, it's decay, spiritual loss.
That's the implication. And remember the cycle of reincarnation. Those who do not become Gurmukh, who aren't oriented towards the Guru, they do not understand the name, they die and continue coming and going in reincarnation.
Still stuck in that cycle.
Still stuck. And ignoring the Creator doesn't just leave you disconnected. The texts say it makes people impure. It affects their basic spiritual condition.
What about worldly success? If someone focuses on accumulating wealth, Maya,
That's seen as ultimately futile. Gathering the wealth of Maya just earns an evil reputation in the long run. It brings no lasting value or peace.
and neglecting the guru, that seemed particularly important.
Very. Those who do not serve the true guru shall be miserable throughout the 4 ages. It's depicted as a state of profound spiritual poverty, like being lost and begging.
And remaining focused on duality.
Leads directly to terrible pain and continued reincarnation. That very sense of separation is the suffering.
And living without selfless service.
Those lives are described simply as wasted away, missing the real point, the true potential.
The sources use a specific term for those who follow their own ego, right? The man-mucks.
Yes, the self-willed, the man-mucks. They follow their own mind and desires instead of the guru's guidance, and their fate is described quite clearly.
How so?
They are ruined through duality. They do not find liberation. They wander like lunatics, completely lost spiritually.
Because they don't engage with the Shabad.
Exactly. They do not contemplate the Shabad, the source of wisdom. Instead, they just utter empty words, speech without substance. Their worldly gains, their assets are all false.
And because they don't understand the divine will, the hukam,
They face harsh consequences. They are beaten down by the messenger of death. There's a direct link between ignoring the divine order and suffering the consequences.
what about people who perform religious acts but are still attached to Maya or ego?
That doesn't help, according to these verses. Even if they read scriptures, if they're still attached to Maya and do not recognize God within, they're considered foolish. They might perform rituals, but they do it with conceit.
And the texts warn they'll regret that.
Deeply regret it, especially when caught by the messenger of death. Their suffering is described vividly. Terrible pain, being intoxicated with vice and understand nothing. They find no stability or place of rest. Their minds and bodies become insipid through duality.
Just forgetting the Lord is seen as catastrophic.
It's equated with spiritual death. Those who forget might as well die. Their lives, however full they seem, are fundamentally useless without remembering the name.
The language gets incredibly strong, calling those who don't meditate on the name murderers of the soul.
It really underscores the vital importance placed on this practice within these texts. It's seen as life-giving, and neglecting it is soul-destroying.
Is there any escape from the consequences?
Not according to these verses. Even secret wrongdoing, corruption committed behind many screens, is revealed in an instant. Truth comes out.
And sinners find no stability or place of rest, consigned to hell, a state of turmoil.
Right. And the body, without the soul, is dreadful. When the end comes, the image is stark, bound and gagged, punished and beaten by the messenger of death, helplessness and judgment.
And clinging to differences, to duality, right to the end.
Leads to pain, punishment, and sorrow. That separation is the source of hardship. If the giver of peace does not dwell in the mind, they ultimately depart with regret, a life ending in sorrow unfulfilled.
So, the self-willed, the man-mucks, bound by their ego and ignorance, they just head towards regret and continued suffering in the cycle.
That's the picture these specific verses paint. Destroyed by pain, reincarnating, their lives ultimately proving useless without the name. It's a powerful, stark contrast to the peace, liberation, and connection offered on the path we discussed.
Wow. Okay, so stepping back from all that detail, this deep dive into just these specific verses you shared gives us a really clear, if sometimes challenging, map.
I think so. We've seen the divine presented as this ultimate, infinite, formless reality, yet also deeply immanent, the creator, sustainer, ruler.
And then the human condition, often marked by suffering that stems from forgetting that reality, getting caught in ego, attachments, duality, Maya, various vices, leading to that cycle of birth and death.
But then, crucially, the path laid out in these texts. The absolute centrality of remembering and meditating on the divine name, the name.
Guided by the essential wisdom and grace of the Guru, primarily through the Shabad, the Guru's word.
Supported by the community, the Satsangat, and involving personal transformation, cultivating virtues, ethical action, humility.
And all of this unfolding within the context of divine grace, Kirpa, which seems both necessary to start the journey and essential for its completion.
It connects the dots. The ultimate reality, our current situation, and a prescribed way forward, holding this interesting tension between dedicated effort and complete reliance on divine favor. And again, it's important to remember, our focus today was only on the insights found within these specific excerpts you brought from the Guru Granth Sahib.
Absolutely. And these texts, even just these snippets, offer so much to think about, ideas that don't always sit easily together. Like you mentioned earlier, that paradox, the Lord being intimately within every heart, yet simultaneously completely unaffected, like a lotus on water. What does that really suggest about our relationship with the divine while living in this world?
That's a great question for reflection. Or, how do you hold the idea that whatever pleases you is the only good done? Suggesting total divine sovereignty, alongside verses saying our own actions draw us closer or push us further away, according to their own actions.
Right, that tension between divine will and personal responsibility or consequence.
Exactly. These aren't simple answers. They're profound concepts layered within these verses, really inviting you to go deeper to contemplate them yourself.
They certainly provide a rich landscape for thought, challenging us on the nature of reality, our place, the path, holding those tensions. A lot to ponder indeed.
Absolutely. It's been fascinating to explore these specific sources with you today.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.